Hey guys, this is Locke. In this video, I'm going to focus on Auguste. I'm going to do a review of his rage mechanic. Um, I'm also going to talk a little bit about, you know, how he functions at 4 stars and why a lot of people say he's really, really good at 4 stars and you need him at 4 stars. But I'm actually going to then focus on his 2-star build and how you can achieve a lot of the same things that you can do at 4 stars with only 2 stars. There are some limitations, but there are also some advantages as well, which I will get into. And then I will, yeah, I mean, we're going to talk very detailed about rage because it's actually a lot of stuff to cover. It's quite an interesting mechanic. So let's get started. So what is his trait? What does rage do? So every time he attacks or he stands by, he gets 1 stack of rage. Whenever he gets 6 stacks, and then if he uses an active skill or basic attack, uh, he then can trigger his rage mechanic, which basically lets him act again, and also get extra attack from the rage outburst skill or passive or buff or whatever. So one of the important things here is that he has to use a skill or a basic attack to actually trigger the rage mechanic. And I will show you why this is important later on in a playthrough, and it actually changes things a little bit. But before I do that, I'm going to go and look at his 4-star build. So why is this build? People say that you really need this guy at 4 stars to be able to use him well. He's like a night and day at 4 stars and 1 star. And why do they say that? Okay, so at 4 stars, he starts the game off with 4 stacks. Okay. He also gets more attack from the rage outburst as well. He gets 70% of M attack instead of 40%, which is what he gets right now. But the main thing that people say, hey, you want him at 4 stars, is because of the amount of rage he starts with. So why is that 4 stars 4 rage important? That's because he has an instant skill. So he can use an instant skill to get 1 rage, that's 5. And then he uses any other skill or any other normal attack that will be, his 6th rage, which he can consume right away. And then he's able to use another skill. So he's basically able to use this skill, which does 40% of attack, the next skill, which is 80% of attack, and then the ultimate version of the skill, which is going to do 160% of attack. So that is basically 160 plus 40 plus 80, so 280% of attack with 1 turn, in the very first turn. That's going to be hard to find things that can survive that, right? So of course that's a really, really powerful combo. And don't forget that the third state, when he uses his third skill, 160% attack, he's also going to have extra attack from the rage outburst, which is going to make that attack even more powerful, right? So that is why people say, hey, you really want to get this guy at 4 stars. That's how you're going to be able to use him really well. And so if you're getting him, you better be prepared to put him into the shard farming thing to make sure he gets to 4 stars as soon as possible, which I think honestly is fair. I do agree that, like he is very, very powerful at 4 stars and he's able to get this combo off on the first turn, which is obviously has its advantages. But let's look at what he does at 2 stars and if that is sufficient enough to play him. Because for me personally, I think I would probably leave him at 2 stars for quite a while. And it's not because I don't think his 4 stars is important, but because I have other characters that need their shard farming more than he does. So why 2 stars? Okay, so 2 stars, the biggest difference between 2 and 4 stars is that he will get 2 stacks of rage at 2 stars instead of 4. And then, of course, like any other character, you also get passive kind of stats increases when you have higher stars. So with other characters, you might have like, say 10% M attack at 2 stars and then 20% M attack at 4 stars, something like that, right? So with him, the difference is the rage outburst, right? The rage outburst only does 40% of M attack, whereas at 4 stars, he gets 70% of M attack, which I honestly is a pretty big difference. So that will be there. Like, there is a huge component of he gets extra attack from this, which I totally agree with. I think that is a huge part of it, and I think that is very powerful and good for him. But let's look at what he can do at 2 stars. Now we have to use our imagination a little bit here because mine is only at 1 star, right? So at 2 stars, he starts off with 2 rage. So we're going to pass the first 2 turns and assume that the game actually starts 2 turns later because I don't really know how else I can get him to be at 4 stars, sorry, at 2 stars without doing that, without skipping 2 turns. So I'm going to make sure he doesn't get hit by anything. So that way, I'm not cheating and, he gets uh, another rage stack from something hitting him. Okay, so right now he's starting with 2 stars. Okay, so one thing I forgot to mention is that to be able to build this well at 2 stars, you do unfortunately need an instant trinket. So there's only 2 in the game right now. An instant trinket that can attack an enemy. So only 2 in the game. One is the armband. The other is a roaring flint. I don't have the flint yet. It's the fire ring that does AoE damage. I don't have that yet, but I have like 5 copies of the armband. I wish I can get one of those roaring flints soon, but unfortunately, one of these things are needed to be able to pull this combo off on the first turn. And it is not going to be as powerful as the other one, but honestly, I feel like it's fairly serviceable. Like, it's not just serviceable, I think it's actually pretty good. So this is how it works. So if you don't have him at 4 star, but you have him at 2 star, which you can get within a week because you can farm 3 shards a day. In 7 days you have 21 shards. You only need 20 shards to get him to 2 stars. So let's see. So this starts off like this. So he uses the first instant, then he uses the next instant, okay, and then he actually uses this skill, the hassle skill, which is going to give him 2 stacks. So now he triggers his outburst, right? His rage outburst is triggered. We can see right here, and he gets an extra turn. So now he can use, like this skill, and so he was so there were a few things that happened, and there are differences. Like I said, he was not able to use his ultimate, this skill, the 160% attack skill, on the first turn, but he can use it right after, right? On the very next turn he can use it, and although he can use and while he's using it on the next turn, he still is able to take advantage of the rage outburst. It's still active, so he's still able to get off the damage portion of it with this thing there. He's just not able to do it on the first turn. And of course, like I mentioned, the modifier on the rage outburst is 40%, not 70%. So there is a difference there. But aside from that, mechanic-wise, he's still able to do most of it. It's just like this one skill is taking off next turn instead of the first turn. And he's also able to put the shield as well. Like, he's able to get the shield off on the first turn. Because if you're doing it on the 4-star version, right, you're probably ending with this skill. Like, you're ending with this skill right here. And if there are enemies that are attacking you, you're not protected by the shield on the very first turn. The reason that people say, hey, you want to get this on the very first turn the reason you want to get him at 4 stars is because he can get the combo off in the very first turn. If he's susceptible to other people attacking him, he doesn't have any other defense. Like, the only defense he has is really 15% damage taken reduction. Like, there's no other shield or anything here if you don't use this skill. So yes, you are giving up using this attack on the very first turn, but by using this, you also are able to have a shield on the very first turn instead, right? And you can attack the next turn, but you have a shield. And to me, like, that's, I mean, like, you have to make your choices, right? Like, if you really like him and you want to farm him as soon as possible, then, you would stick him in there and try to get him to 4 stars as soon as possible. For me, I have other priorities that I'm focusing on now, which I think are bigger priorities than him. So to me, I will just try to get him to 2 stars, and I'm probably going to let him sit there for a while and use him this way. So, you have to decide for yourself which you think is more important. That using it 2 stars and being okay with 40% of M attack instead of 60 being transferred as physical attack, or you really want that higher 70% attack, and you also want to be able to use this skill on the very first turn. If that's more important to you, yes, you should be trying to get it to 4 stars ASAP. If it's not so important, you can use my build that I'm showing you now. There is something else I realized about him with this skill in particular that I think is bugged in a good way. Like, I think it actually makes the skill even more powerful than what it's supposed to be. But I feel like it's a bug. I don't think it's intended. So it might get fixed. And if it gets fixed, then obviously this part won't work. But let's put him back here. So when I use the skill, okay. So when I use the skill, I'm going to show you. So the shield part does not seem to have a cooldown. So if you look right here, right, the damage reduction, it says it lasts for 2 turns. So after 2 turns, that part is gone. The shield, it doesn't have anything like that. It's just there. So if you use it on the first turn like I showed you, and you don't even get hit, then, in 3 more turns when you cast the shield effect is actually going to be doubled, which I'm going to show you right now too. So I'm going to go back and use this flag so it's easier to get him to let me put it over here. So it's easier for him to be able to use this again next turn. So 1 more turn, he has to wait. Okay, so he's going to use the shield again, and if you notice, like at the top bar, the white is the amount of shield, right? So if I use the skill again right now, take a look what happens. The shield actually doubles, right? Like it's covered. Now I don't know if that's a visual glitch. It could be a glitch, it could be a bug, it might get fixed, I'm not sure. But the way it stands right now, the shield is stacking, right? And if you notice, like the hassle buff here, it says at the top as well, there's no like turn counter on it. Instead it has a 2. Like to me it sounds really weird. Like I don't know why it's that way. It seems like it's a bug, but if it doesn't get fixed, if this is what it's supposed to be, or even if they know it's a bug, they're like, whatever, like let's just leave it like this, then you can actually stack the shield. So having the shield on the first turn, even if he doesn't get hit, is not a bad thing. Like it can stack, right? And you can actually absorb a lot of damage with the shield. There's another thing that I wanted to point out with him at 4 stars or even at 5 stars. Let's go back to take a look at this character, because I think that's also something else that's pretty important to talk about. 1 second while I get there. Okay, so regardless of what star it is, like even let's look at 5 stars, okay, he still only gains 1 stack of rage for his attacks. Like beyond the first turn, there's no way that he actually gets rage faster. He's stuck at 1 rage per attack, or unless like there's some skill that gives him more, it doesn't actually help him accumulate rage faster aside from the very first turn. So regardless of if he's 5 stars or 1 stars, beyond the first turn, and beyond the damage component of the Rage Outburst, because as I said, Rage Outburst 2 and 3 gives you 70% of M attack, whereas the Rage Outburst 1 gives you 40%. Beyond that difference, he's going to play the exact same. There's no other difference in how fast he accumulates rage, except for the very first turn. So this is really only about managing the first turn, like doing a lot of damage on the first turn. And as I mentioned, the Rage Outburst 1 versus 2 versus 3. But mechanic-wise, he functions the exact same way. So because of that, I feel like he still needs to have a way to get rage, right? So because of that, I feel like having this reaction is actually pretty important. This reaction, whenever he gets attacked, he gets 1 rage. Now, he's not a defender. He doesn't have a lot of defense. So how does he manage this defense? Like, how does he manage getting hit and not dying? Because, he doesn't have anything to prevent taking a lot of damage except for this actual reaction skill, which decreases damage by 15%. If I look at the other reaction skill, for example, that's even less. Like, he doesn't actually even get any damage reduction at all here. So, so regardless of what you take here, and if you're not taking the skill at all, he doesn't have survival. And so the only way for him to manage rage beyond the first turn is, in my opinion, to get hit. So this skill, to be honest, becomes, in my opinion, very, very important. If you're looking at the skill and saying, okay, if he stands by, he gets 1 rage. If he uses this skill, he gets 2 rage. Well, why do I want a skill that just gives him 1 extra rage? It doesn't sound good to me, right? We'll ignore the last part of it, but let's just look at the first part. Like the last part says he can get an extra 1 if he's in the injured state, but let's forget about that. So why do I want the skill if it only gives me 1 extra rage? Is because it gives you a pretty high shield that lets him build rage with the reaction ability. If he doesn't have the shield, he's probably going to die very soon. And he's still going to die to magic attack because it only gives him physical shield. But because of the physical shield and maybe the bugged, I don't know if it's a bug or not, the bugged version of it where it lets him stack it and gets a pretty high shield, he is able to take on physical hits. And because he can take on physical hits, that's going to increase his rage, which then is going to be able to translate into him, doing the rage outbursts more often and unleashing his combos and killing enemies. It functions well, right? But to do that, in my opinion, he really does need to be taking hits. And to be taking hits, he really wants the shield, otherwise he's just going to die. So to me, these two things are pretty important to his skill set. That's just how I see him. If you disagree with me, if you think that, the other one, I've seen a lot of people actually talk about this one instead because they're saying, hey, I can just give him healing and increase his damage by 20%. Which, yeah, you can, right? Like, his overall damage increases by 20%. But then how do you build rage stacks, right? To me, that's a pretty important part of him because after the first turn, it seems really hard to build his rage stacks. I'm also going to assume that if you're not taking the skill, most likely, most players would also probably not take hassle either because you're assuming he's not getting hit, right? Like that's the reason why you're even taking this, because for this to activate, you don't need him to get hit. You just need to give him healing, which you can probably do every single turn. There are heroes that can do that, right? So if you're trying to play him in a way that he doesn't get hit, you're probably not going to take contempt. You're probably not going to take hassle. So the only way you're building stacks is by using reaction skills, and there's only one that he has. Sorry, not reaction skills, instant skills. There's only one that he has, which is this one, and only the first version of it. And then maybe the armband or the fire ring. So that's not fast, like he's not going to build stacks fast. So to me, it seems a bit inefficient, but I might be wrong. If I'm wrong, like, you know, like if you write a very detailed response, and people have done this in other videos of mine, they have a different opinion of mine, and they write a very detailed opinion of why they disagree with me and what this did. I pin it. I pin the comment because I'm like, hey, this guy has a really good point. I may or may not disagree with it, but it's a different point of view and it's very detailed and people can read it and see what it's about. So I would pin the comment because I want people to also make an informed decision, right? Like, hey, this guy makes a really good point. It's very detailed, talks about it in a lot of context. I want people to read this comment as well when they watch this video. So if you strongly feel that, these two are not the way to go, but you should get the other reaction, and this is also not the skill to have to have a different skill instead, write it below, because I think that's, like I would like to read your comment, and if you if you write a very detailed comment with other notes that people can easily follow as well, I would definitely pin it. Okay, so let's move on. So I feel like, this is the way to get him to function beyond the first turn. The stars seem mostly to just the very first turn to get us stacks up really fast. What do I think about this skill? Because this skill is also something that is bugging me. I really like it. I like the effect of it, especially the when he's in the rage outburst state. There's a 50% chance of inflicting stun. What I don't like is the cost. It's a 4-star cost, right? Like, sorry, 4 energy cost. So in the very first turn, right? Like, even if there's a way to get him to like full energy, right? Even if you start with 5 energy, and you start the very first turn off, you're at 4 stars, right? So let's go to 4 stars. So at 4 stars, he starts with 4 stacks. Whenever he does the rage outburst, he also gets 1 energy. So to use this thing properly, he has to start with this skill on the first turn, right? So he uses this, it costs him 2 energy. Then he uses the snap version, the second version, which costs him 1 energy. So that's already 3 energies used. So he has 2 energy remaining, right? And now his rage is triggered, so he will get 1 energy back. That's 3 energy. he still does not have enough energy to use this on the first turn. Like if you're fighting multiple enemies and you want to stun them, you have a high chance of stunning them and whatnot. It's a great skill to have, but you cannot even use it even on the 4-star. You actually need 5 stars to be able to pull this combo off. So that's harsh, you know, like because 5 stars gives you 2 energy. So you can pull this combo off on the very first turn, but you need a 5-star Auguste, which is a pretty steep investment. So I thought I would highlight that as well. So most of the time I'll probably not be bringing the skill. I'll actually instead be bringing this one because I think that one makes more sense. And it's, it works passively. It also gives some healing back. So I'm running this guy who I assume is going to take some damage and he might break his shield. So having a source of healing for him, I think is a good idea. It'll help him to survive longer for sure, right? And also does deal 15% of current piercing damage as well, current HP. So it's not a bad secondary effect. It'll just help him to do what he does best, like deal even more damage, right? So this is probably the build that I will be using most of the time. The 3 wrath skill abilities, and then the hassle and warm touch. So I mean, I've talked a lot about the skills already, but I mean, since I already talked about most of them, I might as well just finish it off. So for the first one, what do I think is better? I think both of these have uses. Um, like if I'm fighting enemies, or a stage, I come across I don't know, like the tower, something that's coming up, and everyone has a shield. Like, of course, I probably want to use the first skill because the damage modifier is pretty high. It's a single target damage, 150%, 3 energy, but it adds 30% of attack extra. So I would probably want that, right? It's situationally useful. The second one, the Knightly Spirit, is also kind of situationally useful. Like when you're attacking enemies from the front, you do 20% more attack. But I mean, I don't know. Like it might be useful, but you have to give up a skill slot for it. I can't really think of too many. Maybe it also increases his defense by 40% when he's hit from the front as well. But because he doesn't have like a reaction that lets him turn and face enemies. Like he doesn't have block or anything. I don't know how useful this is. And also the 40% defense. Like if it was 40% damage reduction, that's huge. But 40% defense, for my testing, it's not as big. So I don't know how useful it is. So they both seem situationally useful. So depending on the context of when I need to have a use for it, I'll probably pick the skill then. But until then, I'm probably gonna leave it like this because I don't know which one I'll really need. Both of them seem fairly situational to me. For these two, again, it's kind of situational. Like the attack command seems nice because it will stack with Gloria's flag, and if you have Gloria and him, they're both Union. I feel like you'll be using both of them on the same team, so you can increase your other allies' attack with Gloria's flag and also with this attack command. But usually, if you have Auguste is the main guy that you want to increase his damage, right? So, is it useful? I mean, maybe not. It really depends. Like I feel like it's going to be hard pressed for me to find a slot to fit that in. And what about the tearing whirlwind? Again, situation, because if there is enemies that all are able to heal back and do a lot of healing back, then I would like to use the skill to give them like block healing. So it's a situationally useful skill that maybe has some uses, but until I do find a use, I'm probably just gonna not take either of them and just leave it as is. So for these, like I think both of these are pretty nice. Like if you are probably gonna take one of the other skills, like maybe Knightly Spirit, the one you would probably give up, I'm assuming, is Warm Touch. But I feel like Warm Touch is just overall better. Yeah. So what about this one? Extermination versus Charge Attack. I feel like Charge Attack is actually really good on him because I feel that he's able to pull these combos off where he builds up rage and then he unleashes the rage, right? So as he's unleashing it and he's able to take another turn and do a massive hit, that next massive hit is going to have an additional 15% modifier from the charge attack. So I think like that is a pretty good one. I feel like this one is probably more useful for PvP when you're able to remove energy from enemies. That would be nice, right? You're able to basically indirectly you're able to keep them only doing basic attacks, right? Like imagine fighting what's her name? Nono will, right? Like her dance thing, it makes you not be able to use any active attacks, right? So unless they have active attacks that cost zero energy, with this, like, depending on other factors too, of course, right? But the normal thing is that they recharge one energy a turn. If you're able to remove one energy a turn from that one character, they can't really attack. But I feel like it is more situationally useful. I feel like this is the one that you would go for, like as a general kind of build. But I do see cases where in PvP where this one could edge out. Finally, for the last one, I really like the skill. I just wish that the cost was 3 instead of 4. Like especially that 50% chance to stun and that huge AoE you can attack, like that huge range. I think it's great, but the cost makes it really hard to pull off in a combo. That's the only thing. Yeah. So even before 3 stars, I think 3 stars is when he first starts getting one rage back. So even at 2 stars, 1 or 2 stars, right? If he uses this skill, it costs 2 energy. He can't use the 4 skill energy anymore. So even like casting instant skills and then comboing with that will not work. You have to use like a basic attack and then use that one. So I feel like it's situational because of that. Like the energy cost requirement just makes it so hard, in my opinion. Once you get it to 5 stars, it's going to be a lot easier to combo it with other things and be able to get off those stuns and things like that. But you need them at 5 stars to do that, and that's going to be quite a while. So it's a great skill. The energy cost requirement is just a little bit too high, in my opinion. This one is also nice. This is his highest single target attack. It costs 4 energy, but I feel like, if you're using 4 energy on this, you might as well use it on the full combo of this. It's like 40 plus 80 plus 160. I don't know. I mean, I feel like it's situational. Like the other effects from this is not that great. Okay, dispels 3 buffs. Sure, like a lot of enemies do have a lot of buffs, so maybe it's okay. I feel like there are probably better things though. So I don't know. Like it's not even like I would definitely pick this one over that one, and they both still cost 4 energy. So there's still the energy problem, right? Like I can't. It's hard to combo it with anything. Like the only thing I can do it with is like combo it with the arm guard or something, you know. So that's what I think about as skills. Now there's one other thing that I really want to talk about, which I think is important to demonstrate. So I'm going to get into this again, and I just want to show you. So I'm just going to let this play out, and then I'm going to show you a second version to show you why what I'm doing is actually inefficient. So right now I'm going to start. I'm going to use this one. That gives him 2 energy. That gives him one rage. This is going to give him the second rage, okay? And then this is going to give him 3 and 4. So he's going to get 2 more hits, and he's going to be at 6 rage. So let's see. So there's 4 rage. He gets hit once, 5 rage, and he's going to get hit again, second time with 6 rage. Okay, so now when he attacks, of course he is going to unleash his rage thing, and he can take another attack, right? But what I actually did was inefficient, and I'll tell you why. Like I'll actually show you the example of why what I did was inefficient. I actually did not need to use the armband to build this rage. So I'm not going to use the armband this time, and I'm just going to do the exact same things I did last time. So that's 1 rage right there. He's going to use this to get 2 and 3. And then he is going to get hit by that, which is 4, and then this one, which is 5. So as you can see, like he's starting this turn with 5 rage, okay? But everything he's doing now is going to be the exact same thing as last time. See, he attacks this one. His rage is triggered. He can go and he attacks this. This is where we left off last time. So what does that mean? So what I'm trying to tell you is that when you're starting a turn, it is actually the most efficient to have him start a turn at 5 rage, not 6 rage, right? He just wants to end the turn at 6 rage, not start the turn with 6 rage. Otherwise, like that one attack, you're kind of like wasting the rage generated from it. Because if he's already at 6 rage and he attacks, he stays at 6 rage, right? So I thought that was just something I could point out. And he also does need to, actually I should have just showed you this. He does need to attack to trigger rage. So let me just show you. So he does this. Okay, so I'm going to start with 6 again. And I'm going to show you that it's going to be the exact same thing. Like I can't, if he doesn't attack, he doesn't generate rage. Like I can't, stand by and, like, he is at 6 rage, right? But I need to actually attack or use a skill or do something for him to trigger it. So if he just stands there, as you can see, the turn just moves on. So that's what it is. So maybe the only thing is, let's just try it. So I'm going to attack this thing once again. I'm going to see if he has 1 or 0 rage. Let's see. He has, yeah, he doesn't even get 1 rage. So when he's at 6 rage, right, and he triggers his out, like he should have gained 1 rage right now, right? But he didn't. Like that attack used up the 6th rage and it didn't do anything. So he actually does completely just, that 1 rage that he should have gotten is just used up. He didn't do anything with it. So it's the most efficient for him to start turns with 5 rage, not 6, because otherwise you're just wasting 1 rage really. So if you if you want to plan out your moves to make sure that he is at the optimal and he's doing as much damage as possible and getting his rage as much as possible, just make sure that you're starting turns with 5 rage, not 6. Okay, so I think that's it for this video. I mean, I feel like I covered a lot of concepts here, talked very much in depth about the rage mechanic and then the difference between 4 stars versus 2 stars and the advantages and disadvantages of that. We did a skill guide. We talked about the different skills and why I really like the skill, but the cost is just a little bit too high for me to use it effectively. What do I think about gear? Okay, actually there's one thing I should have talked about. So he really wants as much physical attack and magical attack as possible, because of course his physical attack, all his skills is built off physical attack. The higher the attack is, the higher damage he will do with his skills, right? They're all built off of physical damage. He has 2 mechanics that help him with the M attack. So one is this Rage Outburst, which transforms the M attack into physical attack, and the other one is his shield, because the shield also uses 60% of M attack to give him a bigger shield as well. So those 2 mechanics make him build such that you really want to give him as much physical and M attack as possible. So like this arm guard, for example, is a good it's a good idea to put something like this on him, where you can get a really high physical and magic attack. Regarding tarots and equipment itself, I'm not sure what the best one is. I'm still finding out. I'm still experimenting with them a little bit. So give me a little bit of time to figure out the best exact equipment on him. I mean, there are guides of people that are talking about it and have said something like this is probably the best one, but we will decide that. We will do some more experiments, or at least I will do some more experiments and see if that's the best one, or if there's a better combo out there or something like that. But anyway, that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you have questions or comments, leave them down below, and I will do my best to get back to you. So take care now, and I will see you guys next time.